Joining me now, the former mayor of Philadelphia, Michael Nutter. Mayor Nutter, not only the former mayor of Philadelphia, but the current chairman of the Mayor Bloomberg for president campaign. He's up to 10% in the polls. We think he's going to win Virginia. We think he's going to win a bunch of southern states, and I've got a story to tell the mayor when we have him. Mayor, are you with us, sir?
I'm right here.
Okay, Mayor, so I got to tell you the story, right? So I'm in New Orleans over the holiday visiting my oldest son, who is a high school teacher, and we're in a bar in New Orleans at the hotel I'm staying at.
Okay.
And we talked to two African-American
women.
Sounds
like a good story already.
I know. So we... Yes, like after, 3 beers at the Embassy Suites happy hour, which is free, by the way. So I'm talking to two African-American women. One, a retired federal worker, worked in the transportation department for 25 years, just retired in December. The other one was the dean of the community college system in South Louisiana, right? So these are two professional women. And we get around to politics. I'm for Trump, obviously. We get around to politics, and I said, who are you voting for in the primary? And both of them didn't miss a beat. Said, Bloomberg. We're voting for Bloomberg. I'm like, why? They're like, well, he's the only one who can win, and he was a great mayor. And I'm like, well, I was in New York. He wasn't a great mayor. He was a super great mayor, right? It's like beyond, the guy was phenomenal. So I got to thinking about that. You look at him, he's at 10%. But how do you, give us the pathway, Mayor Nutter, to Bloomberg's going to Milwaukee, Mayor Bloomberg, and being the nominee. What is the pathway?
Well, obviously there's a long road between now and then, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that story. You never know what might happen in a bar in New Orleans.
That's right.
So a lot will happen between now and then. Obviously, we've got Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina first and foremost. And as you well know, we are not competing in those particular states. Many of the other Democrats are. I think out of February, it potentially will be somewhat inconclusive in terms of a dominating or leading candidate. A number of different candidates may win any number of those contests. And then we show up, of course, on Super Tuesday, March 10th, and the rest of March into April. We expect that we will have a very significant Super Tuesday and the rest of March. Some of the other candidates, we think there might be some shrinkage by them. We have been in a number of states and Super Tuesday states and beyond where none of the Democrats have been for the most part because they're spending a significant amount of their time in Iowa, New Hampshire, and those other contests. We have, as I'm sure you probably know this, but for your listeners, we're active in 30 states, over 1,000 staff, and are building operations in a variety of places. As I think you mentioned in the as you were doing your introduction, yes, I was in Virginia yesterday. I'm in North Carolina now, and had a big California and Western swing about 10 days ago. And so Mike is competing in places now. He's running against Donald Trump in the primary and caucus season as if it's a general election. None of the other campaigns are doing that. And quite honestly, virtually none can do many of the things we're doing just because of resources and the level of operation that we're running. So, we're Democrats, so of course we have a lot of candidates. But the fact is, many, many, many Democrats, even those who would indicate in polling that they are for someone now, have also indicated that they're not rock solid for that person and could possibly end up with another candidate. And so part of the challenge for us is just, we have to reintroduce, as some might say, we have to reintroduce Mike Bloomberg to the American voting public. You indicated you knew him as the mayor of New York. Well, quite honestly, even with 8 million people in New York, it doesn't mean that the rest of America knows what he did in New York or know what he did in terms of creating a company from scratch that employs thousands and thousands and thousands of people across America and around the world, or the work of Bloomberg Philanthropies. And so we have to tell that story. That's our challenge. That's our responsibility. But we think we have a great story to tell. Like any elected official, he did some great things. He wasn't perfect. And some things worked, some things didn't. But overall, in 12 years, New York became the safest big city in the United States of America. Crime at historic lows, and is a safe city. But also in healthcare, in the environment, climate, and reducing carbon emissions, in jobs. I think people forget that 9/11 took place on Election Day in New York City when Mike was first running for mayor back in 2001. The election had to be pushed back. He wins, and then has to try to rebuild not only the infrastructure but the spirit of New York City. Creates 500,000 jobs, most of which were not in Manhattan. But, of course, Manhattan came back. World Trade Center gets rebuilt. And New York is a very, very different place than it was when he came into office. He could do those same things for the United States of America. And I watched much of that work, of course, while I was a city council member first and then became mayor of Philadelphia. So I'm very excited for us and about Mike, and just telling the story about him to as many people as I can across the country.
Well, Mayor Nutter former Mayor Nutter of Philadelphia, we're with on the John Fredericks Show. I'm your Godzilla of Truth. Mayor Nutter also is the national, yes, that's my tagline, Mayor Nutter, the Godzilla of Truth in America, right?
Okay. So, did you give yourself that title, or
yes, yes, I did.
That bestowed on you? Or? Okay.
I gave it to myself, and it stuck, right?
Yeah.
It's on my own branding machine, Mayor.
Right. Okay. So, well, I guess that's usually the best.
You're Godzilla of Truth. I'm glad I made you laugh. So, Mayor Nutter, former mayor of Philadelphia, the national campaign chairman for former mayor of New York.
Political chair.
National political chair. Okay, national political chair. Let me get that straight. National political chair of the Mayor Michael Bloomberg campaign for president. So what you're attempting, Mayor Nutter, has never been done, which is to skip the early primaries and then go to Super Tuesday and be the nominee. It didn't work for Giuliani, who was the front runner back whenever that was, I guess, 90s. 2000 or something.
Kind of like a long time ago. And I think we're in a different situation based on when Mike decided to get in the race. I mean, it's only speculation at the moment. If he had announced, this time in 2019, you might see a slightly different strategy. But when we announced in the fall of 2019, numerous Democratic candidates had been, on the ground, almost living in a lot of those states. It really didn't make a lot of sense for us to try to compete in those places, which, just from a data point standpoint, those four contests represent 3.9% of the national delegates that you need to win the nomination. Super Tuesday and beyond in March, 60% of the delegates are available to try to capture during that time. And so from just an efficiency and effort standpoint, 3.9% versus 60%, you have to figure out how you're going to spend your time and resources, and it just really didn't make a lot of sense for us. We're not being disrespectful to
I get it.
Those voters. But, I mean, the states that will ultimately really decide the election in the general are those states. And that's where we're spending a lot of time and effort and resources.
All right, a couple more quick questions. I know your time is valuable here, Mayor.
No problem.
One thing is, when Mayor Bloomberg was first thinking about running, and I can tell you that as part of the Trump campaign operation, I'm a senior advisor. I was Virginia chairman in 2016. Quite frankly, I didn't want to run against Bloomberg. I thought he'd be the toughest guy, and I still think he is. But Mayor Bloomberg said, look, I'm not going to run for president because I don't want to spend the next year and a half apologizing for being a wealthy, middle-aged white guy. What changed?
Well, none of that changed, that's for sure. I mean, he is still wealthy.
He's still white. He's still middle-aged.
You can't do anything about your race or your age, right? One's going to stay the same, and the other's just, hopefully you're just going to get older. But more seriously, I think what evolved, again, if we're talking about the same time frame, January, February of 2019, Mike was seriously thinking about running, and I was one of many encouraging him to run. That's a very personal decision. He decided not to. We probably had at the time 17 or so Democrats and growing that were running, and he said, I don't necessarily need to be in that contest. Fast forward 8-9 months, 24 candidates, debates, other things happened during the course of the season, and Mike came to the conclusion, based on data, evidence, polling, he was concerned as to whether any of the leading candidates, because the package started to separate, whether they could beat Donald Trump in the general election, which is really what matters. I mean, obviously getting the nomination, getting through primaries and caucuses, going to the convention, all very, very important. But the Super Bowl of this thing, if you will, election contest, is in November. And Mike decided that he really needed to step up, utilize his time, energy, and resources. It's obviously a much smaller field today. I mean, in the whole scheme of things, again, not being disrespectful to anyone, but the pack has started to separate. It's 5, 6 or so people who are polling at a level that they're really contending, and has entered this race, which has changed dramatically from this time last year. That's why I decided to make a difference, because we can run a general election type campaign. We can compete in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Virginia, California, Florida, Texas, in a number of states right now, where virtually none of the other Democrats can do that, because, again, they're focused on Iowa, New Hampshire, and really don't have the resources to be able to put operations in 30 states and hire 1,000 people in 6 weeks.
Well, Mayor, look, you're right on a lot of the things that you're saying. For instance, we're going to Iowa. We get there on Wednesday night. I'll be there through Tuesday. I'll be in a campaign bus with my live radio show, following various candidates around, talking to Democratic voters. We just got a poll today, right? USA poll says Iowa straw poll, Biden up by 6. Emerson poll says Sanders up by 9. That's a difference of 15. What that means is nobody's really made their mind up. I mean, how do you get two polls on the same day that are 15 points apart? I mean, come on, man. Right? What does that tell you?
It's indicative that the voters are still trying to make up their minds. They're still waiting to see. I mean, as I think you pointed out earlier, I mean, many of the candidates, officially or unofficially, have been on that field for almost a year, if not more. Voters have a ton of information and data and still have not, kind of really landed in a solid place. That says for us there is opportunity once people better get to know Mike Bloomberg.
I think you're right. The other thing you've got going for you is I had 2 phone calls in the last 2 weeks of people that you've hired on the field who are considering working for other people, and they've gone to work for the Bloomberg campaign, and they said 2 things. Number one, we think he's best positioned to win, so our job will endure, right? These are field workers. And the other thing is they said that you were paying 2 times what anybody else was. So as a result of that, you're scooping up the best talent in these states. And when that is a great strategy, because ground game in these states, field organizers, people with experience, you pay them more.
Alexis are one on the ground.
Well, you're going to get the best people when you're paying more. I mean, it's just simple. It's simple math. You have the resources to do that. I mean, I heard that, and I'm like, okay, this thing's for real, because I had 2 people tell me that.
The one other thing I would say to you is, and so you're right on those first 2 points, but I think equally important, I would make the third point. I've been, at headquarters numerous times. I mean, there's a level of enthusiasm with these folks that is also significant. I mean, I think people understand that they are participating not only in something very different, but also something historic. And, if you're involved in politics, if this is what you do, if this is, kind of one of your passions, then you want to be not only on the best team, but a team that is on the verge of making history.
So as a former New Yorker myself, who was there many times during Mike Bloomberg's tenure, and I thought he did a fabulous job, by the way, because the other thing you didn't mention is in New York City, the quality of life went up, right? Quality of life went up. Got the homeless off the streets, got the needles out of the gutter. You felt safer. Times Square turned in from squalor under Mayor Dinkins to basically Disneyland. You take your family there. The honking way down, right? You used to be up all night. People would honk all night. That went away. So there was quality of life issues. Yeah, that were, when you're in this city and spend a lot of time there, like I did, it was a big deal. Okay, what's going to be your first win?
John, what is it, the Godzilla truth? I mean,
yes.
You know that I'm not going to, on the radio here, predict. We don't compete until Super Tuesday. I think we're going to have a very, very good Super Tuesday. But, I'm not going to, a month out, speculate on, this state, that state, the other state. I mean, I appreciate the effort on your part, but no, I'm not going to do that.
But in order to be competitive, though, you are going to have to win states on Super Tuesday, right? Second and third isn't going to matter, right? I mean, you have got to win states.
We will have to do very well, and at least be very competitive on Super Tuesday, March 10th, and the other contests. I mean, this is not like third grade hockey or something. I mean, you don't get a whole lot of points just for participation.
Right. No, you gotta win states. So I'm going to make my prediction. I'm seldom wrong on these things. I think your first win is going to be in Virginia. I think the Democratic Party is really set up for you because in primaries, recently, you've got a lot of the progressives winning. But if you look at Virginia history, they nominate moderates. They nominated Ralph Northam for governor back when he was a moderate. They nominated him for lieutenant governor back when he was a moderate. McAuliffe was viewed as a moderate. They nominated him. Cray Dees for governor. They nominated him. So you get a lot of moderates coming out of Virginia. Right. I think Sanders got 32% here, 35% when he ran against Clinton. So I think you guys are set up for Virginia well. Plus, you got a great ground game here that you've hired. So I think it's going to be interesting. Yeah. And
well, we had a good time in Virginia yesterday.
Tell the mayor to come on my radio show.
Well, I'll mention it to him. Generally, don't tell him what to do, but I can encourage him. I assume you guys have your own relationship. Anyone with the tagline "Godzilla of Truth," I'm sure he must be aware of you. But I'll certainly make the recommendation. You've been very kind to me. I appreciate it. We don't necessarily know each other, but it's certainly been a good time with you.
Mayor Michael Nutter, former mayor of Philadelphia and the national political chair of the Michael Bloomberg for President campaign. Sir, thank you for your time, your enlightenment, and thank you for being with us today, and good luck.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.